I have big news for you.
Michael Myers is a member of the Holy Trinity of 70s and 80s unstoppable horror killers with 12 stabby outings. Half of those have been accompanied by the world's most dedicated babysitter, Laurie Strode. The series has passed through legendary creator John Carpenter, a Rob Zombie reboot, and with Halloween Ends, the Blumhouse half reboot, half continuation comes to a close with 44 years of history to dig through. Spoilers, my friends. Lots and lots of spoilers. Here we go. One of the biggest qualities of a movie killer, especially one like Michael Myers, is that it seems like they just can't seem to stay down. One of the great mysteries of these slashers like Myers or Jason is why they seem so durable. In the case of Michael Myers, that power is contractual obligations. Halloween actually started as the brainchild of producer Irwin Yablans and financier Mustafa Akkad, who had seen Carpenter's assault on Precinct 13 and tapped him to direct a movie about a slash who kills babysitters. Thankfully, it dodged the name The Babysitter Murders and it was moved to Halloween. Mustafa has maintained the rights to the character, and those were passed down to his son Malik after Mustafa, sadly, was lost in the 2005 Amman bombings. Part of the contract he has is the requirement that Myers is never really dead, though it doesn't seem like a body switch will save Myers this time. When Halloween came out in 1978, it really set the tone for the slasher movie. That includes the constant refreshes and endless sequels with a loose relationship with continuity. For the 20th anniversary of Michael's first Halloween, a new sequel was made that brought Strode back for the first time that was titled Halloween H2O, which made it seem like he was trying to muscle into Jason's lake-based killings. Another 20 years and Strode is back. Exactly, actually. The release of the Blumhouse trilogy follows the original release by 40 years. 1978 to 2018 for Halloween. Halloween 2 and Halloween Kills came out in 1981 and 2021 respectively. Halloween Season of the Witch, the non-Michael Myers entry, came out in 1982, and Halloween Ends, obviously, 2022. John Carpenter has an enviable career of standout films, usually made with shoestring budgets. Carpenter maybe didn't know that he was foreshadowing his own career when he filmed the opening of Halloween. The kids are watching a scary movie in the opening of Halloween, the 1951 classic The Thing from Another World. Of course, we know that story better as the 1982 Kurt Russell movie The Thing, one of the greatest science fiction horror movies of all time, which of course was directed by John Carpenter. Halloween Ends begins with babysitter Corey watching Carpenter's The Thing, giving a nod to the series' creator. If you're a legendary genre director, you are, of course, going to have a philosophy about how those kinds of stories work. In a 2011 interview with Vulture, Carpenter laid out the two types of evil, saying, quote, "There are two different stories in horror, internal and external. In external horror films, the evil comes from the outside, the other tribe, this thing in the darkness that we don't understand. Internal is the human heart," end quote. Part of the journey for Laurie Strode over these last 44 years is trying to figure out just what the heck is going on with Myers. What makes him so stabby? As she sits over a Michael Myers protege, Laurie thinks that she has it figured out, paraphrasing the creator about the two different kinds of evil. With villains like Myers and Jason, part of the creepiness is that they are covered in masks, they're faceless and expressionless killing machines. But that's not always a star-making role. Nick Castle got the role of cinema's famous slasher the way a lot of independent movies end up finding their cast. He was friends with the director. He ended up donning the bleached-out Shatner mask just so he could hang out with his friend on the movie set. The way Castle describes it, it turned out to be more than just walking from here to there. Every cinema killer needs a significant move, and Castle created one that was as simple as it was unsettling. Castle gave Myers his signature head tilt. Castle hung up the overalls after the first movie, but returned for some scenes in 2018's Halloween, and in a scene that ultimately was cut in Halloween Kills. For Halloween Ends, the man behind the monster mask finally got to step out, playing a bar patron dressed as a morbid flasher, using the line, See anything you like? An ill-fated line of a victim in the first movie. After 44 years, Haddonfield has a lot of people left who have a deeply personal interest in the end of Michael Myers. One of the kids that Laurie was babysitting and subsequently saved, Timmy Doyle, turned out to be just as damaged by his encounter with the unstoppable slasher as Laurie. Julian, the quick and smart-mouthed kid whose babysitter was killed in 2018's Halloween, appears to join the procession of residents to see Myers once and truly die, so now he can concentrate on growing up to be awesome. Just the right font can make all the difference. The first two movies in the Blumhouse follow the traditional font for the Halloween movies. The third movie in the series is a bit of an anomaly, as it had nothing to do with Michael Myers. Season of the Witch reflected an early conception for Halloween that it wouldn't be the story of one slasher who can't be put down, but rather a name for an anthology for Halloween-themed horror stories. Having already set up the sequels as the continued story of Michael Myers, it just ended up confounding everyone. But it's the third movie, and Halloween Ends is the third movie in the Blumhouse trilogy. While it contains 100% less witches, it still contained a nod to the odd man out by sharing the font from that entry for Halloween Ends. For the Halloween franchise, the theme that was composed by Carpenter himself is almost more recognizable than its villain. But there's also the soundtrack music, the songs that are diegetic, music that the characters are listening to, like Laurie and fellow babysitter Annie listening to Blue Oyster Cult's Don't Fear the Reaper while sharing a doob in their giant Malaise-era car. In a nod to Laurie's musical tastes, the song plays non-diegetically as the credits roll in Halloween Ends. No fandom, not even Marvel, has anything on the horror movie fandom. That creates fans who themselves become celebrities, like drive-in movie aficionado Joe Bob Briggs. Briggs's own enthusiasm for the genre and the unique ways he expresses it has made him a beloved horror movie figure. That's why, in 2018, Shudder invited him to host a drive-in double feature for The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs. Like a demented Captain Kangaroo, he has his own cast of characters, including Diana Prince as, no, not Wonder Woman, Darcy the Mail Girl, who brings fan mail to the host to read on camera. When we finally get to put a face to the voice of radio host Willie the Kid, we get a quick glimpse of the station's receptionist, who happens to be Prince before she's one of Casey's attempt to be Myers 2.0. Even when you're notorious for improvising weapons like John Wick, there's still that one weapon that you'll eventually get known for. Wick has taken down tons of baddies in a number of ways, but there's just that time when he used a pencil. Myers has been stabbed, shot, punched, pushed, burned, but perhaps one injury looms above them all: the knitting needle. In her final battle, Laurie looks to play the hits by grabbing a nearby knitting needle. Naturally, we all know the name of the man behind the mask, starting with the first movie where Donald Pleasance's Dr. Loomis won't shut up about him. Regardless, it's not a mystery of who's behind the mask, it's Michael Myers. Except in the script, where Myers is described simply as the Shape. It's initially how Carpenter referred to the mask that Myers wears and how he emerges from darkness to do what he does best: horrible things. In a nod to Myers' secret menu name, when Laurie talks about evil coming from either within or from without, she refers to it as the shape of evil. Part of the magic of the first Halloween and its follow-up Halloween 2 was that Halloween 2 picked up immediately where the previous movie left off. Halloween Kills follows in that tradition. After a flashback, it opens with firefighters rushing to put out the fire that was set specifically to kill him. It was originally intended to keep that up, having all three movies essentially document one horrifying Halloween night where we keep thinking that they've beat the boogeyman. However, Halloween Kills already ran up a problem with that plan. At the end of 2018's Halloween, Laurie receives some serious damage fighting Myers, who is able to cut her abdomen rather deep. That means that she spends most of Halloween Kills in the hospital. If they kept that pattern up, it stifled their ability to have one final showdown with Michael. So instead, they opted for the 4-year jump. When the Blumhouse trilogy started, the script was the product of director David Gordon Green and comedy writer and actor Danny McBride, best known for shows like Eastbound Down and The Righteous Gemstones. Apparently, comedy writers make good horror writers, who knew? By the time Halloween Ends came about, the writing duties fell to Green and McBride, as well as Chris Bernier and Paul Logan. In this case, all 4 writers worked together on the script at the same time.
It's fiction. People like to read descriptive adjectives. It sets the scene.
Here's a fun thing. Want to know if the writers worked together or separately? If they are credited with an ampersand, they were a writing team. If it's just the word "and," the second screenwriter rewrote the first one. Green used this team to do what he referred to as choose-your-own-adventure style writing. They'd have a scene that starts with Laurie at the head of the stairs and Michael at the bottom. Then they'd divvy up the possible outcomes amongst themselves, and then come back and compare them until a consensus was reached over the best option. Incidentally, with the sliding scale of canon in the series, the Halloween franchise is referred to as a choose-your-own-adventure franchise, as people get to assemble their own sense of what is canon and what isn't. Perhaps the wildest pitch for Halloween Ends as the last chapter of Michael Myers is that Michael Myers spends much of the movie hanging out in a pipe cave. They had a list of questions they wanted to answer, like what Myers had been doing for 4 years, and questions they decided they were better off not answering, like what he eats and where did he go to do his business. Yeah, good call. The filmmakers became so enamored by the idea of Myers living in a cave, the production was titled Cave Dwellers, as big franchise movies often don't use the real name to avoid having their sets overrun by fans. Another weird tip, if you come across a crew filming something and they tell you it's for a mayonnaise commercial, it's a reality show, and the person that you asked has signed an NDA, so maybe leave them alone about it. Even though Myers spends much of this final movie, but probably not his final movie, in a cave, it doesn't mean there isn't a fair amount of, stabby-stabby. It's just that this time the stabby-stabby comes from Myers' temporary protege, Corey. At first he uses his own pumpkin mask, but determines the image of the shape is more compelling, and Myers was just a man, so he dons the mask and goes to brutalize his bullies. But director Green insisted there was a separation. Primarily, you never see a full head-to-toe body shot of someone in the suit unless it's actually Myers. Even before the invention of streaming, DVDs needed a selling point. One of the most common extra features is the deleted scenes. Well, to have a deleted scene, you have to shoot extra scenes. When Corey is pretending to be Myers, he's frantic and sloppy, not murderously efficient and brutal. To demonstrate that, they went back to the archive of Mike Myers' kills and had him pin a victim against a painting on their wall with a kitchen knife. It was meant for DVD extras, but everyone ended up liking it too much, so it went. By Halloween Ends, Laurie has started to come to terms with her traumatizing life, even though the last time we had saw Myers, he had killed Laurie's daughter Karen and Laurie vowed to kill him. She went from that to out of sight, out of mind. Well, except for the memoir titled Stalkers, Saviors, and Saw-Wen, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, maybe not, is the Celtic festival that evolved into Halloween, and it's not the first time it's been mentioned. In Halloween 2, Myers writes it on a blackboard, and Dr. Loomis mistranslates it as Lord of Death. Both seasons of The Witch and The Curse of Michael Myers use the original festival as a plot point. While Michael Myers' ire is rather unspecific, his protege has beefs. One of those beefs is with Laurie, who saw the evil in his eyes and tried to keep him away from his granddaughter. When he tries to do a Myers impersonation with Laurie, it's not gonna go well, but he does play the hits. When Laurie looks down from the window and sees Corey as the shape and then vanishes, it mirrors a set of shots in the original. Likewise, Halloween Ends much in the same way the original Halloween did, with a series of shots of empty rooms in Laurie's house. Only this time, Myers is presumably dead. Well, until the next reboot. Every movie killer has their signature weapon. Jason's machete, Freddy's claw glove, and Myers' the kitchen knife. The big one. The curve of the knife's blade is matched up with the shape of a pumpkin as the immediately recognizable image of the Halloween movies. Halloween's 5 through 7 added a bit of reflection of the shape to the look, which gets a call out when Laurie sees her nemesis's reflection in the blade. Having Myers hang out in a cave most of his last movie was a bold move, but an even bolder move would have been to make the third entry in the Blumhouse series a sequel to the Season of the Witch and not even have Myers in it. Hey, go big or go home.